And just when I thought my intros couldn't get any worse. After 3 years and a whole pandemic later, the first volume of Season 4 has arrived, and along with it, my life for the past few days. This video isn't a recap, I'll be covering some of the show's biggest questions, and I've left timestamps below so you can see all the topics I'll be covering. And get ready, because every time there's a product placement, you have to drink. Honeycomb, Mountain Dew, Pringles, and Applejack's Minute Maid you butter too. Crayola and others too many to mention, or else I'll get copyright sued. The name of Season 4's big bad, Vecna, is actually an anagram for Vance, the surname of fantasy author Jack Vance, who inspired the magic system used in Dungeons & Dragons. In the D&D universe, Vecna is a once human king that ascended to godhood and has gone by various titles like Master of the Spider Throne and the Maimed Lord, which after watching Season 4 really begins to make sense. For the first part of the season, it seems Vecna has seemingly come out of nowhere, attacking various Hawkins teens shortly after 11 has left town to start a new life in Lenora Hills, California. But as our beloved Dusty Buns theorizes, Vecna has actually been in Hawkins the whole time. It was always thought that the Mind Flayer was the supreme ruler of the Upside Down, but in fact it was merely a foot soldier of Vecna. But that begs the question, why now? Why didn't Vecna reveal himself way back in Season 1? The answer is twofold. One, Vecna wasn't always this powerful. In fact, during his transition from human to undead, he was in a weakened state. He needed victims to get stronger. As Dr. Samuel Owens says in episode 3,
each time it returns, it comes back stronger, smarter, deadlier.
The second reason centers around 11. At the end of Season 3, she lost her powers, making it the perfect time for Vecna to unleash his master plan, to take over the world by creating hundreds, if not thousands, of gates between our world and the Upside Down, eventually taking it over and reshaping it in his image. With the only person who could take him on powerless and out of town, it was the perfect time for him to reveal himself. 11's loss of powers is explained rather quickly by Dr. Brenner, who states that when oxygen was cut off from her brain, it rewired it in such a way that made her forget how to use it. Kind of like when someone suffers a stroke, they may forget how to walk. But Vecna's origins go back even further, to 1947 with the birth of Henry Creel. Henry was born with supernatural powers, chiefly the ability to venture into one's mind and see them for who they truly are. This applied to his parents, Victor and Virginia Creel, who on the outside looked like the quintessential loving parents, but also held traumatic pasts. We don't know much about Virginia, but Victor ordered the shelling of a building during World War II which killed a baby, perhaps even more, which is why we see him tormented by the image of a cradle burning in a fireplace. It was this ability to see into people's minds that fueled in him a hatred for humanity, who he believed to be the ultimate pest. To him, humanity was a bringer of chaos, throwing the balance of the world off kilter. While it may seem like we have some sort of form of structure in our society, it's all a facade to him. Humanity merely marches to its own death, acting in what he calls a, quote, silly, terrible play. This is why he shows his victims a grandfather clock, a symbol of the endless march towards death. So if humanity is bad, what does that make him? He believes himself to be the bringer of balance. This is why he has such a fascination with Black Widow spiders. We'll see several of his victims haunted with images of them. The Black Widow is a solitary but powerful predator who feeds off the weak. Without them, lesser creatures would overpopulate and bring about instability. So he believes himself to be like the Black Widow, culling humanity to restore this balance and bring the world away from chaos. In his twisted mind, he's not a villain at all. Henry's powers started off small. He had to cultivate them. He started first with animals in his front yard. When his mother sensed this evil within him, Henry took matters into his own hands, killing her and his sister and falling into a coma before he could kill his father. Poor Victor Creel, who believed these murders to be the result of a demon, was arrested and institutionalized for their deaths. More than 30 years later, Nancy and Robin will sneak their way into Penhurst Asylum to interview him, and I just gotta say, it's awesome to have the guy who played Freddy Krueger now playing a character who is haunted in his dreams.
I followed her, only to find myself
and a nightmare far worse.
Also, bonus points if you got the Freddy Krueger cutouts in the video shop. With no parents and nowhere to go, young Henry found himself under the care of Dr. Brenner, and when it was discovered he couldn't be controlled, was implanted with a sort of chip called Soteria, named after a form of psychiatric treatment for those suffering from mental distress. For Henry, Soteria stifled his powers, allowing Brenner to control him, essentially making him what he calls his slave. So for years, Henry Creel was prevented from carrying out any violent plans. That's why there was no mysterious murders in Hawkins from about 1959 to when 11 escapes the Hawkins facility in season 1. But Vecna's true origins revolve around Henry Creel's friendship with 11. He befriends her at a time when it seems everyone is against her, a sentiment which is paralleled in present day when 11 is incessantly bullied by roller skate extraordinaire Angela.
Angela!
This is why you should always roller skate.
To me, Henry, or Patient 1 as he's also known, was manipulating 11 from the start so he could exact his revenge on Dr. Brenner and free himself. He uses 11 to remove his implant, allowing him to completely massacre everyone at the facility. But when 11 interrupts him and refuses to join him on his quest to reshape the world, that's when Henry is banished to the Upside Down and transforms into Vecna. Ironically enough, it was Henry's advice to hold on to a locked memory that makes you both sad and angry that allows 11 to overpower him, creating this gate into the Upside Down where he'll soon take control. We aren't exactly sure how Henry survived this plunge into the Upside Down and all these lightning bolts which scar his body, but with his powers and the unknown physics of the Upside Down, anything is possible. But let's dive a little deeper into Vecna's victims and his murderous process, as it might give us clues as to what happens in Volume 2. We've already talked a bit about his father, Victor Creel, but what about those in present day? And by present day, I mean the 1980s. Oh, Chrissy Cunningham, the girl who is so sad but after meeting Eddie Munson for 2 minutes, looks at him like I look at my dad when he picks me up McDonald's. I'm an adult man. She, like the other victims of Vecna this season, like Fred Benson, Patrick McKinney, and Max Mayfield, all share the same symptoms: headaches, nausea, hallucinations, and nightmares relating to trauma from their past. It's this trauma that allows Vecna to really latch into them. We'll see this one instance of Vecna searching for his next victim and hearing various townsfolk talk about their fears and frustrations. Fred's trauma was that he was involved in a car crash where someone was killed, a crash where he was likely the driver and he feels responsible for that. Max feels guilty over the death of her brother, Billy. Patrick we don't know much about, and Chrissy is plagued by an emotionally abusive mother who pushes her to become bulimic. In episode 1, we see Chrissy purging and later haunted by the voice of her mother taunting her, calling her a fat pig. Later, the mom says she'll loosen her cheerleader outfit because she's gained weight. There's also a scene with a dinner table filled with a feast of rotten food that Vecna uses to taunt her. When one starts to receive these visions from Vecna, they have about 24 hours before they're killed, but a week before that they experience headaches, chills, and nightmares. It's never explained why they aren't immediately murdered. Maybe Vecna needs time to really get into their minds, essentially weakening them enough for him to kill them. Or maybe he just wants to taunt them before they're killed. After all, he does say he wanted to hold a mirror up to his victims so they could see themselves for the evil people they really are. But it's Max who's the only one who escapes Vecna's curse, that trance-like state his victims can't seem to snap themselves out of. In episode 4, when Nancy and Robin visit the asylum, they learn that music can act as a gateway to parts of the brain that may otherwise be shut off. So when Max is thrust into the Upside Down under Vecna's curse, they blast her with some music which creates a tear between our world and the Upside Down. This could really come into play in Volume 2. But more interesting is the fact Max was able to reach Vecna's hideout without him knowing. When he finds out she's there, he's legitimately curious how she intruded on his space. In episode 7, Dustin theorizes that Max may have discovered a back door into Vecna's lair. This is definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on going into Volume 2. There's also a ton of new information regarding the Upside Down. When Nancy and the gang travel to her house hoping to find weapons, they learn that it's basically trapped in time. November 6, 1983 to be exact, the date Will Byers went missing and the gate between our world and the Upside Down first opened. While using his compass to find Eddie, Dustin theorizes that the reason it goes crazy was due to interference by an electromagnetic field. These gates between worlds produce such a field, so it can be surmised that many such gates may be all around Hawkins, and that these gates spring up at every murder site. That's why we'll see one at the bottom of the lake where Patrick died, and Eddie's trailer where Chrissy met her demise. This may also have something to do with Nancy being teleported to that empty pool where Barb was killed way back in season 1. So much for #Justice for Barb. Communication is also a bit weird here. In the real world, Dustin can use his voice to communicate to those on the other side, but those in the Upside Down can only communicate using light. And I really enjoyed the creative way they showed this using a light bright, kind of like the Christmas lights in season 1. Perhaps the biggest cliffhanger from season 3 was what the hell happened to Hopper? Well, we get our answer in episode 2 when it's revealed he survived the blast and was picked up by the Russians. Joyce Byers and Eleven, believing Hopper to be dead, have moved on with their lives. That is until Joyce receives a mysterious package from Russia with a doll containing a note that looks like it was written by my ex-girlfriend demanding we get back together. She knows this message must have been from someone who knows Hopper, since it mentions Enzo's the restaurant she and Hopper were to go to. She'll team up with Karate Master Murray on a risky journey to break Hopper out of prison with the help of the guy who played the man with no name from Game of Thrones. While Hawkins deals with its own curse, so too does Hopper, believing he has cursed everyone around him. In episode 4, he says of Joyce,
She's not my woman.
That's not because he doesn't love her, it's because the closer he gets to her, the more danger she's in. And this has happened to everyone he's loved in his life. The daughter he had with his first wife, Diane, died due to complications he believed were the result of his exposures to chemicals in Vietnam. He then drowned himself in alcohol and drugs to numb the pain, and it seems everyone who comes close to him suffers a tragic fate.
See, I was wrong this whole time. I wasn't cursed. I am the curse.
The last we see of Hopper in this volume is him being reunited with Joyce after he defeated the Demogorgon we saw the Russians capture in the season 3 post-credit scene. But just how will these guys escape the prison and get back to Hawkins? Their plane is trashed and they're in the middle of Soviet Russia. My best guess has something to do with the keys, these giant machines we saw the Russians create in season 3 which open gates to the Upside Down. If Hopper and the gang can find a way into the Upside Down, perhaps there's a gate that can take them directly to Hawkins. Season 4 also ups the ante with the US government's relentless pursuit of Eleven, who they believe to be the cause, not the solution, to all these mysterious occurrences in Hawkins. They're led by Lieutenant Colonel Jack Sullivan, who will do anything, including torture and murder, to find her whereabouts. On the other side is Dr. Brenner and Sam Owens, who believe Eleven is the solution. Just a fun fact that Sam is from Ruth, Nevada, and Ruth means friendship in Hebrew. It's ironic then that Sam betrays Eleven in a sort of necessary evil to get her powers back. If Vecna is to be stopped, Eleven will need to face her past and confront her biggest trauma. This is done in a tank called Nina, which coincidentally originates from Babylonian meaning enclosure of fish. Nina also means little girl in Spanish. As Dr. Brenner tells Eleven, Nina is also a reference to a 1786 opera in which a woman's lover is killed in a duel, so she buries this painful memory and shows up at a train station every day thinking he'll return to her. Eleven will need to unbury her own painful memory, even if it means discovering something about herself she might not like.
Only by facing all of ourselves, the good and the bad, can we become whole.
Luckily, this whole red herring that she might have been the one to massacre everyone at the lab was exactly that. However, living with the fact she was involved in creating Vecna will have to be something explored in the next volume. Also, completely off topic, can we just take a moment to acknowledge how this unnamed secret agent dude took down like 5 professional special forces all by himself just using a pistol? He the real MVP. There's also a lot of shipping going on this season on Twitter, but I'm here to say y'all sleeping on Argyle and Eden. As we have about a month until the final 2 episodes premiere, the finale being a whopping 2.5 hours, there are a bunch of theories and predictions I'd like to make. If you're watching this video after the entire series has ended, feel free to turn the video off here, as to not find out everything I say here is wrong. One of the biggest indicators for predicting endings revolves around character arc. A great example of this is Eddie Munson, my personal new favorite addition to the show. His character starts off as a self-described coward, running away when Chrissy is murdered.
There is no shame in running. Don't try to be heroes.
I didn't know what to do, so I ran away.
So, I did the thing that I do now, apparently. I ran.
The writers are setting Eddie up to redeem himself by doing something very heroic. This echoes with Max's arc as well, who feels guilt for not being heroic enough to help her brother. Expect these two to face their fears and complete their respective arcs. Steve Harrington and Robin Buckley have their own character journeys which revolve around love. Steve goes on so many dates but wants to find the right woman, while Robin has found the right woman but can't seem to go on a date. Steve needs to realize that his perfect girl is right in front of him, Nancy, who actually risks her life to save him, an act which Eddie calls
unambiguous a sign of true love as these cynical eyes have ever seen.
I guess, sorry, Jonathan. With Nancy currently in the Upside Down, it looks like Steve will return the favor and come looking for her. Robin will hopefully find the strength on her journey to ask Vicky out, that girl she's been crushing on in band but hasn't had the courage to ask out for fear of being outed. And this leads to one of the biggest arcs of all, 11's, which revolves around acceptance and loving yourself for who you really are. Lucas, Will, and 11 all share some form of this arc. At the beginning of the season, 11 struggles with her own identity, not fitting in at school, and the loss of her powers.
I am different. I do not belong.
She feels she needs to belong and even lies to her boyfriend about who her friends are, something Will calls her out on. She even goes so far as to call herself a monster.
What if I'm not good? What if I'm the monster?
This points to her arc ending in one of acceptance, where she embraces who she really is, and this acceptance will give her the strength to defeat Vecna. Will also has a similar arc, with his version being one of accepting his own sexuality. It's clear he has a thing for guys, turning down footsie with a girl from school, and obviously pining for his best friend Mike. For him to really grow, he'll need to be honest with himself and to Mike, and this might involve finally divulging that painting he did that he's been hiding since episode 1. Please don't be a nude. Lucas also had an acceptance arc, but that one is pretty much completed. He wanted to fit in with the popular kids at school, but what he really needed was to realize popularity means nothing when contrasted with the friendship of your true friends. Also, my big Mike prediction is that he'll tell 11 he loves her, something she chastised him for not doing in any of his letters.
From Mike. Okay.
Volume 2 will undoubtedly have Mike and the gang along with Susie following the coordinates to 11 in Nevada. Now, I looked up the coordinates myself and they lead to a storage building in Nevada, so they're basically off to that secret Nina facility. But guess who's also making their way there? Sullivan and the US government. Remember, he likely got 11's location from torturing this guy named Wallace, so expect a big showdown there with 11 saving the day. My guess is that this big finale will take place in Hawkins and not this Nevada lab, so I think after the US government showdown we head back there where 11 will be reunited with Joyce and Hopper. Now, this is mainly a gut feeling because there's only one quick sentence of dialogue that kinda backs it up, but I think Hopper is going to die for good. Okay, maybe like a 20% chance. Take a listen to this line.
Maybe I can still help Elle, even if it's the last thing I do.
This is either foreshadowing him that he'll sacrifice himself to save her, thus ending his curse, or maybe it's just a red herring. Vecna is also getting more powerful, so I wonder if his invasion will start in the final episodes. I could totally see a ton of gates and monsters unleashed on the world, or in Hawkins, with 11 and the gang having to come together to stop Vecna for good. Now, I'm all out of Eggos, and I do have a D&D party to get to tonight, so thank you for giving this video a watch. Be sure to like and let me know what you thought about this first volume of Season 4. I'll be covering the next one in about a month's time, so make sure you're subscribed for that. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
Cinderella, you dropped your shoe!